Looking at live pictures of the British Parliament and British Prime Minister Theresa May, who is speaking. She's largely lost her voice. Britain's Parliament moments ago has rejected again Theresa May's Brexit deal in a major blow to her EU divorce plans. Let's listen in for a moment.
The EU will want to know what use we mean to make of such an extension. And this House will have to answer that question. Does it wish to revoke Article 50? Does it want to hold a second referendum? Does it want to leave with a deal, but not this deal? These are unenviable choices. But thanks to the decision that the House has made this evening, they are choices that must now be faced.
Point of order, Mr. Jeremy Corbyn.
All right, Jeremy Corbyn is now going to speak, but this is what Theresa May has said, that because of this, Britain's parliamentarians are going to have to make some very serious decisions about what happens next. With me now, NBC News chief global correspondent Bill Neely, who is outside Parliament. Mehdi Hasan, senior contributor for The Intercept and host of the Deconstructed podcast, is also joining us. Let's start with you, Bill. A couple of hours ago, you and I talked. You predicted this would go down to defeat again. It has gone down to a defeat. You heard in Parliament the responses when Theresa May stated the options that are now left to parliamentarians. What does this look like to you?
Yeah, well, wasn't that interesting and significant? Theresa May's voice, barely able to communicate, not getting her message across very clearly. I'm afraid that's the lesson, if you like, of her leadership over the last 12 months. So she has just lost again by historic proportions. Last time she lost by 230 votes. This time she lost by 147. 391 lawmakers voting against the deal that she negotiated with the European Union. That is a huge loss, and I think it effectively means at the minute this deal looks dead, and she is clinging on not just to her voice, but clinging on to power. And as she just outlined a few minutes ago, the next step is another vote tomorrow night on whether or not Britain should crash out of the European Union without a deal on March the 29th. And I think once again, there will be a huge majority in the House of Commons that will say, no, we must not crash out, leading to a third vote on Thursday on asking the European Union if that date of March the 29th, when Britain leaves the European Union, can be delayed. And it is entirely up to the European Union and its 27 remaining members whether it says yes or no to Britain.
Right, and Theresa May seems to be of the view, Mehdi Hasan, that the European Union has no good reason. She said, as we picked up her speech, she said the European Union is going to want a good reason as to why they should extend the deadline. So preparations are now underway for a crash out or a no-deal Brexit, which would involve the British government declaring a critical incident. The Department of Health there has been stockpiling medicine. Food manufacturers are stockpiling ingredients. I mean, Mehdi, this is a serious issue. What happens next, in your opinion?
It's madness, isn't it, Ali? One of the richest countries in the history of the world, my country, the United Kingdom, stockpiling medicines, talking about delays to fresh produce for a no-deal Brexit. Ali, just to be clear for your American viewers, this has been going on for 2 years. 2 years ago, the United Kingdom invoked Article 50 to get out of the European Union after the referendum was won by the Leave side. 2 years later, we're now 17 days away from March 29th, 11 p.m., Friday night. Britain crashes out of the European Union without a deal. This is crazy. There's been nothing like it in my lifetime. And Europe's been tearing apart the Conservative Party for decades. But I don't think anyone thought it would come to this. And Theresa May, I'm sure, didn't think it would come to this. She called an election in 2017 to try and help her negotiating position. She lost her majority. She lost her senior cabinet ministers like Boris Johnson along the way. In January, as Bill mentioned, she lost by the biggest margin of any government in modern British democratic history trying to get this deal passed. She tried again now. Plan B was to try again. Lost again. What is Plan C? She doesn't have one. I don't think the opposition has one. I don't think anyone has one.
Mehdi Hasan, is there a solution in Great Britain? I think we can all agree Theresa May's leadership has not solved this problem. This is what is the solution? I mean, who can solve this problem now? We're 17 days out. What can happen that is not a bad ending for the United Kingdom?
I think it's this idea that something will happen in the nth hour. This idea, there's a lot of Brits who I think in their heads are thinking, well, the Europeans will do something. They'll help us out some way. We're talking now about extending. Bill mentioned the vote on Thursday to extend Article 50 temporarily till May. There are European elections in May, and the Europeans are like, well, you've got to get out before May, otherwise you have to contest the European parliamentary elections. Now, I don't understand what extending Article 50 really does. All it does is we just carry on arguing for another 2 months. Because as long as there's no solution that's acceptable to all the various different factions, the Tory party divisions, the Labour Party division, and of course Northern Ireland, which has caused the recent problems, this idea of avoiding a hard border between Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK and will leave the EU, and the Republic of Ireland, which stays in the EU. None of that gets resolved. I don't see how it gets resolved in 8 weeks or 10 weeks. So all it does is it just moves the date for this cliff edge that Britain falls off of.
Bill, let me ask you about this, because all those other matters, Britain probably can get the medicine it needs, and it probably can, over the course of time, negotiate new trade arrangements if it's not part of the EU. This Northern Ireland border with the Republic of Ireland. The Republic of Ireland is part of the European Union and is remaining part of the European Union. It's not part of the United Kingdom. Northern Ireland, which shares a border with the Republic of Ireland, is part of the United Kingdom and is going to leave along with Britain. This is the part of this deal that many people are worried about because of a potential for tension and possibly violence.
Yes, I mean, look, I'm from Northern Ireland and was there relatively recently, and people are deeply, deeply worried about the return of a conflict that lasted 30 years and claimed 3,500 lives. And a lot of that violence was centred along the border, where there were British Army checkpoints, watchtowers, helicopters going back and forth. Many of the 200 or so roads that crossed the border were closed off. After the Good Friday Agreement that brought peace, all those roads were open. There is an invisible border there. People do not want to go back to that. So, this isn't just about Britain's constitutional position or Britain's foreign policy in the next 20 years, all of which is very important. It's actually a matter of, potentially, of life and death. These are deeply, deeply serious issues. And just to back up what Mehdi said, I mean, the problem in the building behind me is that there are lots of ideas, but absolutely no agreement. There is no agreement on the way forward. None of the solutions, none of the options that have been tossed out in the last 2.5 years commands a majority. So nobody knows what is going to happen in the next few weeks. Will there be a general election? Will there be a second referendum? Will Theresa May be forced by what's called the men in grey suits who might tap her on the shoulder and say, Theresa, your time is up? And then you'd need a new leader of the Conservative Party. I mean, British politics is in ferment. The country is divided. And just to give you an idea of that division, 2 of the 4 nations of the United Kingdom voted to remain, 2 voted to leave. 48% of the population voted to remain, 52% to leave. I mean, this is a deeply divided United Kingdom.
Gentlemen, thank you for your analysis. This is serious. And as Bill said, there is another vote now scheduled for tomorrow on a no-deal, crash-out Brexit. We'll continue to follow that closely with you two. Thank you, Bill Neely and Mehdi Hasan. Mehdi is a senior contributor for The Intercept and the host of the Deconstructed podcast.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.